The situation in Afghanistan is surprising to say the very least. And I mean that in a good way because today, the US and Taliban delegations have officially signed an agreement to potentially end the war in Afghanistan. Now, while there's still a long process to go ahead before an actual end to the war, and I will be getting to that in this video, if this does pan out, with the withdrawal of American troops, an official declaration of this conflict ending, this will be a major win for Donald Trump and his foreign policy. We have been at war in that country for over 18 years. Take this in perspective. I am 23 years old. We have been at war in Afghanistan since I was 5. 5 years old, that long. Now, with this agreement in place and setting up the process for potential peace in the country, we may finally see the end of America's longest war to date. Now, let's look at the agreement. According to the BBC and one of their articles. According to BBC, within the first 135 days of the deal, the U.S. will reduce its forces in Afghanistan to 8,600, with allies also drawing down their forces proportionally. Now, you see, currently we have, and I'm thinking of the total here with Operation Freedom Sentinel, which is the successor of Operation Enduring Freedom. There's over 17,000 NATO troops, most of them being from the United States, of course. But now we're already seeing from this agreement that the United States will reduce its forces in Afghanistan to 8,600. The deal also provides for a prisoner swap. Some 5,000 Taliban prisoners and 1,000 Afghan security force prisoners would be exchanged by the 10th of March, when talks between the Taliban and Afghan government are due to start. The U.S. will also lift sanctions against the Taliban and work with the UN to lift its separate sanctions against the group. Now, that's the part that America intends to do. For the Taliban, it's more they have to do something else. Specifically, they have to make sure that they have to cut their relationships with other terrorist groups, like say ISIS, Al Qaeda, those groups. They have to make sure that they can disconnect any relationship from them whatsoever, and they must prevent Afghanistan from harboring any terrorists. In fact, to be used as a potential terrorist base, like it used to be prior to the invasion of Afghanistan. Now, of course, there's going to be a little bit more to this. There's going to be an extra layer, especially with what the BBC said with after the prisoner swap, specifically saying that talks between the Afghan and Taliban's, or the Afghan government and the Taliban are due to start by the 10th of March. Now, I bet you're wondering why the Afghan government was not part of these talks, and that's a legit question, because since the 2001 invasion, the Taliban have been in a guerrilla war with not only the United States, not only with NATO, but with Afghanistan itself, the Afghan government that was established after the invasion. They never once considered that government to be legit. In fact, they considered it to be a puppet government by the United States, which is why they go directly to the United States first instead of Afghanistan. But now with this agreement in place, there's going to be new negotiations, this time with the actual Afghan government itself. And there's going to be a lot of new factions and interests at play, because the Afghan government wants to maintain its legitimacy, as well as to prevent the rise of the Taliban as a militant group again. In fact, that's something that the United States also wants. But honestly, in this way, the government in the Taliban, the Afghan government would be able to control the Taliban and prevent their political rise again. It's potentially the Taliban could still be a political party, but may not have as much sway in the government as they used to. Plus, there's also that interest of finally ending the decades-long conflict within Afghanistan. And I don't mean just when we got into Afghanistan after 2001, but ever since 1976, that Afghanistan has been a country at war. Ever since the Soviet Union decided to invade, that country has been a mess, to say the very least. It has been so disorganized, broken up into separate factions. And I bet many people are thinking that if the Taliban finally lay down their arms, there is a potential for finally rebuilding the country. Now, of course, there's gonna be a lot of things going on with that, because a lot of people have different interests, including a few women's activists who are worried about how the Taliban might receive the whole idea of women's education, women's rights, and so on, which is a legitimate concern, especially with how the Taliban have been treating women with education in the past. But nonetheless, so far, this is looking good and very optimistic. And if this does pan out, as said before, this is definitely going to give a boost for Donald Trump and his reelection campaign, as if it needs another boost. Hell, the agreement itself already gives Donald Trump another boost, because this shows that he's trying to deliver on his promise to bring the troops home, to not be involved in these police actions and these conflicts anymore. Only when it's something that the United States actually has a major interest in, or that it truly does involve the United States. And I know that a lot of people are not thinking Iraq or the situation in Syria or Afghanistan are considered part of America's interest at this point. So again, that would definitely give a major boost for Donald Trump and his support. In fact, I would be even really willing to say that it would probably increase his popularity, his presidential popularity, should this pan out. I would not be surprised. But of course, this all depends on one group, the Taliban. And this is a worrying prospect, because a lot of people, the Afghan government and a lot of officials within the United States government are distrustful with the Taliban, and for good reason, because the Taliban have been known to attack, to start violence and try to attack in order to gain as much leverage as possible, especially within negotiations. Hell, back in September, when Donald Trump was still trying to negotiate with the Taliban, he decided to cut off the Taliban and any potential agreement after they claimed several bombings in Kabul as a result. But now I'm not sure how the Taliban themselves would likely act. Potentially there could be a rise in violence, but with this agreement in place, I don't think that would be within their best interest. Regardless, there could be some splinter factions who may not like the idea of having this agreement, and may form their own groups and just go against the rest of the Taliban itself. So that alone could cause potential problems. And like I said before, the negotiations with the Afghan government there's going to be pretty complicated, to say the least. And I know I said that term already 3 times now, but still, it applies. They are going to need. There's going to be a lot of interest and a lot of goals and objectives that just the Afghan government and the Taliban government, just to simplify the factions, are definitely going to need to work out. Because it's not going to be the focus on trying to disarm the Taliban or to rebuild their country, but also how the government is going to be, how it's going to look like, and what the future of Afghanistan is going to be. That's the main uncertainty. But regardless, this could be a good thing this could pan out to be a good thing. If the Taliban keeps their word, and that's a big if. I can't say for certain. But if the Taliban does keep its word, this could be a bright future for Afghanistan. This could mean that that American soldiers will no longer have to be in harm's way. This will finally mean that the war in Afghanistan will come to an end. And it's something that a lot of Americans are definitely going to rejoice over. My name is Tony, not the Arc Truth. Please post your comments down below, like this video, subscribe, and share with your friends. Also, if you have any issues regarding how I make my videos, such as my framing of my videos, or how I speak, or any improvements whatsoever you want me to make, or any subjects you want me to talk about, please post them down in the comment section down below, or directly message me. Thank you.